everybody. Good morning. So I want to do like a quick video about the looper and needle. And this right here is my representation of the looper. This is the notch in the looper, and the thread's coming up through the bottom of the looper here into the notch, and it'd kind of be going across. So you have to imagine that this is in your machine with the needle plate on top and some thread. And here's your needle. Okay, so when the machine is working, the looper and needle are timed so that it's always making a stitch regardless of what direction you're sewing. And it makes a stitch in such a way that as the fabric is passing by the needle, it's stitching forwards. So I just want to talk a little bit about needle and looper timing, and I figured if I made a bigger display, it'd be easier to kind of explain. So I just want to talk right now just about timing. So the timing is, if you could use your imagination, that this is your machine here, and as you start to sew, the looper starts spinning and the needle comes down, and the looper passes the notch past the needle, and the needle picks up the thread on the way back up. Okay, and that's what makes a stitch. So technically this is, for me, just happening like in one direction, as if I was feeding the fabric away from me, but this is happening in all directions as you're sewing in 360 degrees. So for timing, it has to be, you start out with the notch at 12:30, 1 o'clock, Singer Cornelli, and it rotates as the needle's coming down, and the thread has to cross the needle, and then the needle will pick it up on the way up to form the stitch. And then it rotates back for the next stitch. So if you're talking about your needle placement in the needle bar, it goes up and down. And if you have the needle, let's say, placed too low, you'll be like catching your fabric and stuff, and it will just be going up and down still, and you'll be catching your fabric. If you have your needle too high, it'll be going up and down, but it may not go far enough down to properly catch your thread. So there's a sweet spot where it goes down just enough and then catches your thread on the way up. And that's how your placement is. Now, I understand that there's a little bit of play, and the needle bar can catch it like this, just barely down and back up, or it can also go a little further down and catch it on the way up. And what that means is if you have it just barely coming down and catching it on the way up, the stroke will go higher, and it'll pull your loop even higher up and give you like more thread forming your chain circle. If you have it just catching, going all the way down and catching, and then just barely coming up, it's not going to be pulling as much thread up to make the chain. Okay, so how high your needle is does affect your stitch, but the most important and basic thing is that it has to go down past the thread and catch it on the way back up. Okay, so what I really wanted to talk to you about today was timing of your machine. I already loaded a video where you can see proper needle and looper timing, and you can see it passing. What I wanted to talk about today is if you're not really getting great stitches, there's a way you can kind of fiddle with your machine without actually changing the timing. Okay, so in my demonstration here, if my needle is coming down and the thread passes and it hooks it on the way up, that's correct timing. But what do I do if my timing's off and my thread kind of passes and then my needle comes down? It's not going to catch it, or it's going to be close where it might not quite catch it. Okay, so if the needle, the hook is always pointing towards you, that's a set thing. And then the looper is always spinning because of the timing adjustment you did. Now, if you want to test your timing, you can turn your hook a little bit. Let's say, I'm over exaggerating here, but let's say your timing, you turn your hook a little bit this way. You might be able to get it where now your hook is coming down and it's turned already to the side. So you've kind of sped up your timing. So it'll catch the thread quicker and pull it back up. So you can speed up your timing by rotating the position of your hook a little bit towards like the 5 o'clock position. And then as it's going down, the hook is already ready to catch the thread. Okay. So if I rotate it down, it'll catch the thread quicker here. And now notice the notches in front here. If it's set properly with the hook pointing towards you, the thread actually has to be all the way over here before my needle's going to catch it. Okay. So that means that if you rotate it this way, it's going to be catching the thread quicker instead of the thread being over here. So by slightly rotating your needle, you have sped up the timing so the hook will catch the thread quicker. Okay. If you think your looper is timed too slow, that's what you do to speed up the catching. If you think your looper is timed slightly too fast, you can turn your needle this way, because that would mean that the thread is like this and your needle's trying to catch it and it can't because the looper notch has gone too far already. So you can turn your hook of your needle a little bit this direction and it'll be catching the thread here and on the way back up. So I just want to let you know that you can modify the position of the hook on your needle, and that will effectively speed up or slow down your timing by when the notch, which is here, comes around. So, if it's here, my needle isn't going to catch the thread until it gets here. So if you're having some issues with your machine, watch my video on checking your timing. And then if it's not timed properly, you can try rotating your needle one way or another, just a little bit, to speed up the timing or slow down the timing and catch your thread. So catching the thread, that's the primary objective, to get a good stitch. This is only going to do so much. You can't change your timing by rotating your needle all the way around because of the feeding of the fabric. So you probably can only go from like 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock, which is sort of just a test to get your machine working. But don't use this as a complete fix. You're still going to have to adjust your timing. But this is a way, if your machine isn't working properly, you can kind of check to see, is this a timing problem? Because there's so many problems that you could be having. You could be having tension problems. You could be having feeding problems with your tension, and your thread could be catching. You could have a burr on your needle plate or a burr on your tension discs, and your thread might be catching. So I just wanted to kind of tell you about this in your troubleshooting. So maybe you could use this slight rotation of the needle just to sort of test if your timing is off, and speed it up or slow it down by how your hook is oriented in your needle bar. And it's an easy thing. I'm still a rookie. I am still learning, and it's not guaranteed that this works all the time. And there's a lot of things going on in your machine that can mess up. But hopefully this will help you guys, and hopefully you've enjoyed my high-tech graphics here. Okay, thank you. Hope it helps. Bye.